Well, guys, it looks like, unfortunately for some of Cardano's competitors, we've entered that phase in the evolution of crypto where you actually have to deliver on all of the promises. And there aren't too many blockchains who built out the foundations to actually do that like Cardano did. If you're way past ready for Cardano to reap the rewards of building on solid foundations, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies DRep address and the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. All right. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, everybody. Let's see who we've got here. Fly over me. Let's go. Let's go. Daniil Wiggins is here. Where's the machete? Yep. It's a lot lusher. 2026 is a lot lusher than 2025 for a reason. We are now surrounded by beautiful, beautiful green plants, and they're probably full of fruit. It's going to be a fruitful year. Neo Chat is here. Chalk Milk is here. Hilldog is here. Thanks for saying that, Hilldog. Guinness Speaks is here. What's up, guys? Chart's looking great. Yep, we're going to talk about it. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Hilldog. Otis Frichov is here. Let's go. Let's go. Mission Zambia is here. Good morning. Thanks for joining. BindoCam is here. Streetwise is here. Raz is here. Afro in the Wind is here. Let's go. Sub-Zero's here. Michael's here. Joe Davidson's here. DVNC is here. Good day to talk about Cardano. Let's go. I agree. Let's go. Elliot Adams here. Let's go. Electric Race is here. Let's go. Joe Davidson. Yes, you were on time. You were on time. Kairos is here. Pump the market. Please, someone pump the market. Joe Davids. Actually, we've done pretty well over the last couple of days, so I won't complain. Guinness Speaks. Let's go. Let's go. Hilldog's here. Let's go. I just got my friend to delegate a large. Oh, thank you. I haven't even that's fantastic. I'll go check that out. Thank you. Streetwise is here. Anybody know when Charles will be headed to Japan? Have dates for Consensus Hong Kong been announced? Ooh, I don't know about Consensus Hong Kong. I saw a post with some dates on X today. I'm not sure which of those events Charles will be showing up to, but if you search X, you might find a post with some calendar dates on it. Miles per hour, 4,500 says, good evening. Fruitful would be nice. I agree. Sounds like you're on the garbage mic. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You know what? Our mic lost power again. Okay, good. Let me see. Let's see if we can get back to the yeah, the mic was on. It like lost power. I don't know what's going on with the mic lately, but I've had that 2 times in a row. Same mic. How are we doing now? How does it sound now? Does it sound better? You should be getting it through the okay, better. Okay, fantastic. Yeah. The actual mic lost power there, and it defaulted to the built-in mic, which is not as good. So okay. And Ulrich is here. Thank you for joining. Hola, Rulo. Thank you for joining. Crazy Speed Freak is here. Everybody says, yep, sounds better. Okay, thank you. Yeah, let me know if this goes out again. I might have to investigate what's going on. It's probably just the wiring. It's probably some wiring. It's not coming undone, but it's like something's happening. So I'll have to investigate a little bit. All right, let's jump into this. So we've talked for years, pretty much the entire history of this channel. One of the big themes has been that a lot of other blockchains obviously decided to sacrifice one or more legs of the blockchain trilemma very, very heavily. And the one they tended to sacrifice was decentralization. In the cases of blockchains, we're sort of headed in that meme coin casino direction, or security. In the case of the robbery forest, they did okay on decentralization. There's certain things I would take issue with, like, like staking derivative platforms being a single point of failure. I think there's problems decentralization wise with some of those things, but they did better on decentralization in their own minds. At least they think they did a great job on decentralization. They did a terrible job with security. One of the biggest problems in crypto in total for all of crypto, including us, one of the biggest problems is a perception that you are not safe in crypto. Not safe. It's a robbery forest. And the biggest offender of that has been Ethereum, at least perception wise. I mean, somebody will probably come up with some chart showing how they think some other blockchain, more money's been lost, whatever. The perception is that crypto's not safe. There's no security. You get robbed. It's a robbery forest. And Ethereum is the most high profile case of that almost all the time. I mean, we've lately been calling Solana the extended robbery forest, but the original robbery forest is Ethereum, going all the way back to the DAO reentrancy attack that led to the split between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. I mean, from the very early days of Ethereum, it's been a robbery forest. One of the biggest events in crypto during that whole era, the early days of Ethereum, was a hack of Ethereum, the DAO hack. So it's been a problem for a long time. Cardano took a different path. Cardano went for extreme decentralization. Everything about the way Cardano was architected was to promote decentralization and security. Did we sacrifice a leg of the blockchain trilemma? Well, on a short-term temporary basis, yes, we did. We sacrificed the scaling leg, right? Everybody remembers the early days of Cardano. Everything was aimed at decentralization. And then it was sort of like Voltaire, and security was always there. And Basho, we haven't had like any giant events. We didn't have any giant events in the early days of, looks like the mic is having massive problems. I don't know what's going on with the mic. The mic is not is temporarily. Okay, I think we just need more slack in the mic. Okay, we might have solved the mic problems. I apologize for that. We might have solved the mic problems. But we didn't have these big Basho events, right? It's we had like Goguen was a big event. It was like, let's get smart contracts, right? But we didn't have that big Basho event. You could argue that maybe Doom on Hydra was a big event. Finally getting a DEX that's running on sort of running on Hydra was a big deal. I think I've fixed the mic problem. I think the arm of the mic was just pulling on the cord a little bit too much. So hopefully that's the problem and it's not anything more serious. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But Basho wasn't something we were real focused on. We knew Basho, which is scaling, sort of the scaling initiative in the early days of Cardano. We knew that it was going to happen eventually, but it wasn't going to happen until later. We heard about input endorsers. We heard about Hydra. Hydra is a thing that's actually sort of in production now, right? We had Doom on Hydra. We know what kind of crazy numbers Hydra can do. Now we have a DEX that's running on Hydra. Mike is this is hilarious. Mike is clearly a Solana investor. Yeah, the Mike doesn't like me talking shit about Solana. I think that's pretty clear. We got Temu Basho. Yeah, the Basho initiative was not the most shining part of Cardano in the early days. That's for sure. I really hope we aren't the laser disc of crypto. I don't think we are. I think we're sort of the opposite. It's right. It's when other blockchains focused on everything but security or everything but decentralization, Cardano took the hard road in the early days of Cardano. We really did take the hard road, but now things are coming back around. Now everybody's seeing what happens when you sacrifice, a leg of the trilemma and go only for scaling. Everybody knows which blockchain that is. Everybody also knows what happens when you build your blockchain on foundations that are going to lead to a robbery forest. We know which blockchain that is. Everybody knows what that looks like. All of the utility is already clear. We already know the utility of the robbery forest. We already know the utility of a meme coin casino. Those use cases have already played themselves out. There's not going to be huge growth in those kind of compromises on the blockchain trilemma. But Cardano is just now putting the final piece in place. Cardano's been like this puzzle where we sort of refuse to put the final piece in the puzzle so everybody can see the full picture. We just sort of refuse to do that. And now Cardano is finally going to put that scaling piece, that Basho piece into the puzzle so people can see what Cardano has been building toward all along. And we didn't build it on shaky foundations, lacking decentralization, shaky foundations, lacking security. We didn't take either of those two shortcuts. Now that the benefits of sacrificing security, sacrificing decentralization have already played out, we've seen how that works in the last couple of cycles. Everybody's seen it, and the detriments to doing that are also very clear. The benefits are clear, the detriments are clear. But what people haven't seen is what it looks like when you focus on those two things, when you don't sacrifice either one of those two things and you put the scaling piece in last. That's what we're seeing right now. So before we jump into a more detailed explanation of that, let's just check on the pricing. Let's check on the pricing real quick because it's fun. We finally got into 2026. We got through the worst year ever. We might as well enjoy better prices. Looks like midnight in place number 54 right now, 8.5 cents, which is about 8.5 times more sense than I expected before midnight launched. My true fear was that midnight would launch under a penny and stay under a penny. Seeing it at 8.5 cents is fantastic to me. I know some people are disappointed. You prefer it to stay above 10 cents and like never go down, number go up only, up only. Famous podcast these days. I know that would be better, but honestly, I'm super relieved it didn't launch under a penny and stay under a penny. So this is perfectly fine with me. We cruise up here to Cardano, still in the number 10 spot. Fantastic. One of the things people forget in Cardano is that Cardano is one of the few blockchains that has been in the top 10 for so long. You know, outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, a lot of blockchains have come and gone. You know, they kind of like flutter into the top 10 and flutter right out. You know, they're sort of the flavor of the week, you know, touches the top 10 and then it's gone, you know, never to reappear in some cases. And Cardano was kind of like this mainstay in the top 10. But it's kind of interesting right now. You look, who's right behind us? Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash, you know, a very dino coin going all the way back to the block size Civil War. We have Bitcoin Cash here in the number 11 spot. This is sort of a return to fundamentals to me. Seeing Bitcoin Cash here, Dogecoin, you know what I mean? These are old coins. It proves to me, it doesn't prove anything, but to me, it's evidence of the fact that people appreciate fundamentally, I don't want to say fundamentally sound, but they appreciate proven products, right? It's like people understand the strengths of Cardano, and it remains in this top 10 spot. People understand what Dogecoin is. It's been around forever. People understand what Bitcoin Cash is, also been around forever. And Cardano's just hanging out there. But look at how much, I mean, Cardano is not, you know, sometimes there's always a little bit of drama when the number 11 coin starts touching, you know, whatever it is from time to time, starts touching Cardano's market cap and people get freaked out because Cardano will get flipped for a second. We'll be in the number 11 spot. You know, sometimes we've fallen even further than that. But, you know, right now, Cardano's looking pretty great. We're in the 40s. Thank God. We're no longer in the 30s, which is good. But let's hit some comments and then we'll get to the real meat of the discussion here. Jordan for America, thank you for listening. Listen whenever you can, whenever you want. I appreciate it. Blue Mammal, hey, thank you for joining. Guinness Speaks says the main artery once constructed can lead to many others. Yeah, I mean, solid foundations, building. I would much rather be in Cardano's position, having built the super solid foundations, security and decentralization, and now finally adding the Basho piece. I would much rather be where we are here because you can add on the scaling piece, But once you've gotten so far down the road, which we're going to discuss in just a second, really hard to add the decentralization piece or the security piece. Really hard to add them back in. GD Extreme, good evening. Good evening. Let's go. Let's go. Binocam says, I'd love it to be under a penny. Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing, right? We'd all love to accumulate more. So, be good for it to be under a penny, but I also like it to be, valued by, the crypto scene at large. So I get what you're saying though. How is Tron up there? People have tried to explain to me, why, how it's attributable to the volume of stable coin trading or something. I honestly pay no attention to Tron. When Tron first debuted and I realized what a sort of ridiculous character Justin Sun was, and when they just straight up admitted that the Ethereum white paper had been had been like sort of directly copied over, and how much it was sort of derivative of Ethereum, I pretty much stopped paying attention to Tron. So, if they've obviously they've found a way to support this market cap. Don't ask me, I can't explain it. Don't say B. Hilldog says, don't say Bcash. Yeah, Bitcoin Cash. Logo is in the way. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see because of the little microphone thing. Let me move that for you. There you go. Lindy effect in action. Let's go. We are Rome. How expensive is it to operate a stake pool? You've got expenses every single month. It's not. Operating stake pool is pretty expensive. The aggregate amount that Cardano stake pool operators pay and cost to operate the stake pools is pretty large. It's nothing like it is in Solana. And it's kind of a good balance in Cardano, I would say, because it promotes decentralization. It's not super expensive like it is in Solana, where you have crazy expenses, but it's kind of also commensurate with how much stake pool operators make. Like no single pool operator is like, getting rich off operating a single pool, because we've got a pretty low saturation point given how much you make, at least in the at least at the prices we've seen since the previous all-time highs. Basically, since 2021, the amount you're making off a stake pool, not much. I'll put it that way. If you're a single pool operator, if you're one of these multi-pool operators, who's willing to run, some crazy number of stake pools. And when I say willing to run them, you understand what I'm saying. It's like largely the single pool operators, like the Army of Spies pool. The reason we don't run multiple pools is because it hurts decentralization. It hurts our Nakamoto coefficient. That's the reason. So for the people who are multi-pool operators, it can be a different situation as far as how much money they're making. But nobody, when prices are like they've been over the last 4 years, nobody's making a ton of money off being a single pool operator. I'll put it like that. This is awesome. Good start of the year. I've been watching your channel for 5 years. Oh, thank you, GD Extreme. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you for watching, man. Really appreciate it. Streetwise says, I kind of wish the CF or somebody was more proactive about explaining some of the stuff. Basho, Hydra sounds like edgelord D&D characters. We need simple infographic with how they integrate. Yeah, if we had that in the early days of Cardano, we actually had, you'd go to the Cardano.com website, and there were like these giant graphics that showed, Gauguin, Basho, Voltaire, and we had like cool infographics explaining exactly what they are. We kind of need to return to that. I think everybody realizes that things have been a little dysfunctional for the last couple of years between the founding entities. Now we have the Pentad. Things are better. There's a lot more unity, a lot more working together. So I think things are getting better. But I agree. We need to probably get back to basics, and just, maybe we need a big landing page like we used to have that explains what was done in Gauguin, how smart contracts under UTXO are a really big deal. We're gonna talk a little bit about that in just a second. How being able to do DeFi in a UTXO environment is a really big deal. How Voltaire is a really big deal. Governance for decentralized governance is a really big deal. What's coming in Basho, including Hydra Hydra and Laos, right? Input endorsers and state channels, how that affects scaling. Maybe we really need to go back to the basics, because Cardano, the greatest selling point of Cardano is the sound foundation upon which it was built. And, I mean, one of the things that made me first pay attention to Cardano was way back in the day. There's a Reddit post, I think by Charles, where he said, "We've solved the blockchain trilemma." This is way back when I was first paying attention to Cardano. He said, "We've solved the blockchain trilemma." We're going to talk about solving the blockchain trilemma in just a second. But Charles said this way back in the day. Was it 2017, 2018? Really early. I got in Q1 2018. I started actually buying. I was sort of like watching Cardano very intently in 2017. But Charles had this post, and that's really the biggest selling point of Cardano. For any blockchain, the real sales pitch is, did you solve the blockchain trilemma the best? Is your compromise on the three legs of the blockchain trilemma the best? Did you achieve all three legs? That's the big question in crypto, and that's what we should sell Cardano on. We should admit, hey, we didn't do the best at scaling in the early days, and part of that was intentional. We wanted to make sure we did the security and the decentralization thing perfectly, which is why we spent so much time on Voltaire. It's why Ouroboros works the way it does. We've got to go through some of those things and explain to people, now we're adding Basho, and here's why this is the best compromise of the three legs of the blockchain trilemma. So I think that's what we've got to do. And what function they add. Yep. Issue with running one is takes a lot of marketing to get delegation. Very true. Very, very true. If you hit 100%, would you think of running another? No, this happened. We got saturated. I haven't talked about this very much because I don't want to lay blame at anyone's feet, but the Cardano Foundation very kindly gave us a gigantic delegation when they were sort of rotating through pools, and they give you big delegations. They gave us a very large delegation, which saturated our pool. We were beyond 100%. The AOS pool was the biggest single pool in all of Cardano, which is a bad thing, because when you run past 100%, it harms the pool. So what happened was they couldn't pull back the delegation fast enough. And so a lot of delegators asked me to start another pool, which we easily could have, because we were beyond saturation, but we stuck to our guns. We believe in decentralization. We don't believe in multi-pool operation, because it hurts the Nakamoto coefficient of Cardano. Like, we could have easily opened up a second, probably a third, probably a fourth, probably a fifth pool. We could run like 5 pools, but it's bad for the decentralization of Cardano. So for the entire existence, even before we started the pool, we decided it would be single pool operators, because it's better for decentralization. Is it worse for us making money? Yes, absolutely. It's definitely worse. I talked about this a lot back in the day, exactly how multi-pool operators are able to make more money. But it's even a little more nuanced than people think. But we decided we're going to do the thing that's better for the decentralization of Cardano. So we're single pool operators. And even when we got saturated by the Cardano Foundation's delegation, we did not open another pool. I had to ask people to leave the pool because the Cardano Foundation couldn't pull back the delegation fast enough. So we lost a lot of delegators, but we chose that instead of opening up a second pool, because it was better for the decentralization of Cardano. So that's what happened. Pucky Hawk, thank you for joining. The Cardano roadmap was named after notable math people in history. Basha was supposed to be the scaling phase, but kind of got put off due to regulatory concerns. Yep. Yeah, Basho definitely got put off. I don't know about the regulatory. I couldn't say why it got put off, but I can definitely say it got put off for sure. Guinness speaks. Thanks for saying that. Only if the ecosystem market cap does what we all want it to do. Charles loves somewhat obscure nerdy names. Very true. Very true. I like the colorfulness of Cardano. I support all the naming, the nomenclature, because it's very colorful and fun. It's so funny when people wanted to point out Cardano went below 10. Oh yeah, that's pretty funny. It happened recently. It happened in the last couple of weeks, and we got flipped for a second, and then we jumped back into 10, and everything was fine. So, and it wasn't even the number 11 or the number 12 ecosystem right now. Like I remember when Toncoin flipped us. I think Toncoin flipped us for a little while. Look at them now. They're in number 27, right? Let me scroll that up so you guys can see it in case you couldn't see it. Yeah, Toncoin, I don't know what we're supposed to call it. They flipped us for a little while back in the day. Now they're in 27. This is what I mean. Like Cardano holding steady in the top 10, like few other ecosystems outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum have been able to do. You go back to 2018, go back to 2019, 2020, 2021. Very few of the same names are in the top 10. You've got Bitcoin, you've got Ethereum, you've got Cardano, and a lot of others flit in and out. Streetwise says, I dig it too. Ada Lovelace was actually Lord Byron's only legitimate daughter. Dope name. And she's credited, by many historians as being the very first computer programmer, depending on how you want to define computers and programming, or at least, maybe programmer, the world's first programmer, that kind of thing, the world's first coder maybe. But yeah, the naming convention is pretty cool. You don't build a rocket and fire it at full capacity right off the bat. True. It's a marathon, slow and steady. Also true. Laos is 70% ready for a SIP. That's what I like to see. If you don't know what SIP is, Cardano Improvement Proposal, that's how we, advance the tech in Cardano. Laos being 70% ready. That sounds great. We're supposed to get it in 2026 this year. So it's an exciting year. That's a really exciting thing. J. Marie bought some Night today. Awesome. Joe Davidson says, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when I look at blockchain, I think about how sparse the internet was at the beginning and how quickly it turned into what it is today. Cardano needs that societal adoption. Yeah, I mean, like, God, I was using the internet throughout the 90s. And if you were not alive or old enough in the 90s, some of you weren't even alive, but if you were not old enough in the 90s to use the internet, like especially before everybody got high-speed internet, it really sucked. The internet sucked. I've said this many times, but I remember there was like a PC magazine. A magazine, it was probably called PC Magazine, but a magazine came out and it was like the best things to do on the internet, the best sites on the internet. And it just had like this little fold out map. You open up the magazine and it had a fold out map of, like, I can't remember how many, like, 30 cool websites on the web. And literally nobody could name more websites than that. One of them was just like this website that had diagrams that were instructionals on how to pick locks. It's like there was not a lot of cool stuff on the internet in the 90s. And in the next decade, we got a lot of very cool stuff. We got the .com bubble and burst, and a lot of cool, they declared the internet dead. The web was dead after the .com bubble burst. And, just a decade after that, it was clear that the internet was like the only thing that mattered. Very similar feeling to now. When the society adopts, and we will see all the tools being used fully. Yep. Respect. Thank you. Zelta77. Thank you. Yeah. Adopt what? Can you explain what society would be doing to add value to their daily life? I think that's probably aimed at Joe Davidson. So BindoCamp says they needed to get the on-chain governance to prevent Gensler attack vector. Oh, I agree with that. If you're saying, yeah, the argument that, and this is something I've talked about on the channel many times. Voltaire is an awesome shield against a Gensler SEC. And we didn't know if the anti-crypto army was going to win this last election. And we just ended up with 4 or 8 more years of anti-crypto army. So it was very wise to do Voltaire first. Decentralization, much, much harder for a Gensler type SEC to go after you. Very smart. I agree with this. Very smart to do Voltaire first and be able to claim decentralization before doing Basho. So I agree with that. DVNC says Charles said Basho was put off because there are some trade-offs. So he said it needed to wait until after governance. Yeah, I agree with that. Charles has hinted about Fortune 10 companies integrations. Is Google going to announce the integration midnight as a selective disclosure protocol? That'd be nice. I like the sounds of it. Let's go turtle style. Yep. Dolph B. Wolf is right. Yep. Come on, getting asked ASL every time you entered a chat was fun. So for people who don't know, back in the 90s, you'd go on, a lot of people would go on like the AOL. AOL was the dial-up service that most people use. You'd get like these free CD-ROMs in the mail, and then you'd put it into your desktop computer, and you'd be able to use AOL, and you'd go in the chat rooms on AOL. So these are like chat rooms directly on their platform, not even on a website. It's like directly in the AOL platform. And people would ask about your age, sex, and location with that sort of those exact characters right there, which is kind of a weird thing, right? Can you imagine if like every time you went on Twitter, people were like, "What's your age, sex, and location?" It sounds like something predators would do, to be honest with you, but everybody did it. First thought AOL was the internet, was basically Discord. 100%. Yeah, if you're too young to remember what AOL was, it was basically like if everybody had to go to Discord first to get to the internet, and then they just got distracted by a bunch of different Discord servers. That's exactly what AOL was. Good call. What do you mean the sound of dial-up was music to my ears? Yeah, I mean it was in the 90s when you were experiencing internet, and that was the only way to do it. It was music to your ears. I was like stoked to hear the beeps. Back-end technology that runs the internet isn't thought about by society. There's 3 dimensions here: user interface, apps society interacts with for personal benefit. Then the data field, the apps are structured around languages, smart contracts, data, and oracles. Then the actual blockchain, all that stuff operates on. It's a complex system. Agreed. Yep, agreed. The largest, most powerful internet company to ever be in existence did not exist until 10 years after the internet was invented. Wonder if crypto will have an analog. I think history is gonna rhyme, right? It may not repeat exactly, but it's gonna rhyme for sure. I think so. Those moderators in the chat rooms, yep. Text-based news groups, man, that was it. Yeah, before a lot of the mainstream was on AOL, I've talked about using bulletin board systems on this channel before, but there were also news groups and a lot of things, including a lot of the cypherpunk movement was in sort of like, was operating out of a lot of these types of little groups. I mean, this is where crypto came from, basically. Okay, moving on. I apologize, we're going really slow again, but you guys say interesting stuff, and it's hard for me to move on because you guys say interesting stuff, and it needs to be brought to lights. Damn it. So okay, here we go. So here's what a lot of this is about. Here's what made me think about this today. This is also true. RSS feeds. We need to bring that back. Omar, thanks for joining. Let's go. Yep, BBS systems. We've talked about it before. Every time I talk about it, though, I try not to say the name of the BBS I'm talking about because it gives away my location. So it's pretty obscure, but if anybody knew, it would definitely give away my location. Okay, so this was kind of interesting. So I was kind of shocked to see this, even before I saw our Cardano friend Sir Corin correct them. This jumped out at me so hard. This like jumped off the screen. So here's this post from Coin Bureau. We all know Coin Bureau. They've been around forever. I don't agree with everything they say. They've actually even quoted this channel before in the videos back in the day. So I like them. I don't agree with everything they say or all their positions, but they're kind of a mainstay in the sort of the crypto space. So that's why I was kind of shocked when I saw this. Ethereum has solved a blockchain trilemma, right? As if there are many that we talk about. Ethereum has solved a blockchain trilemma instead of the blockchain trilemma. Vitalik Buterin says Ethereum has finally cracked this time they used the blockchain trilemma after a decade of work. Though through zero knowledge EVMs and pure DAS, Ethereum can now achieve, here we go, the blockchain trilemma, decentralization, consensus, and high bandwidth altogether. That is not the blockchain trilemma. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I watched them, like back in the day. I haven't watched them lately. So if that's the case, it makes me sad. I like his presentation, at least of the material back in the day. But for anybody who doesn't know, the blockchain trilemma is decentralization, scaling, and security. It's not consensus. Consensus, I would argue, that's kind of a part of decentralization. You can have, you need to have decentralized consensus. That's the main thing that needs to be decentralized is consensus. It's not another leg. It's part of the decentralization leg. Your consensus protocol also needs to be secure and it also needs to be able to scale. So it's kind of a part of all three, but it's not its own leg. This is not the blockchain trilemma. And of course, Sir Corin, thank God, pointed this out. It was going to drive me crazy if nobody pointed this out. So thank God he pointed it out. But here's the problem. They've gotten so far away from the foundations. This is our astronaut friend. He's looking at the foundation of this kind of solar punk high rise, the solar punk skyscraper. He's looking at the foundation here because he knows that's the most important fucking part of the building. The rest of the building doesn't fucking matter if the foundation has cracks in it. And one huge ingredient in the foundation of these blockchain skyscrapers we're trying to build around here is security. We've gotten so far from that shit that now we can have this where people who are very crypto native, or at least organizations that are very crypto native, don't even fucking remember that security is one of the legs of the blockchain trilemma, right? And it's kind of the fault of all of us. Here they're sort of quoting Vitamin. They're quoting Vitamin Butters and this post right here. He went through a whole post where he does say the trilemma has been solved. You can see right here, the trilemma has been solved. And does he mention the word security? Nope. Now he's calling it safety. So he says the trilemma has been solved, not on paper, but with live code running, of which one half, data availability sampling, is on mainnet today. And the other half, ZK, EVMs, is production quality and performance today. Safety is what remains. So he's not even calling it security when he refers to it in this post. Maybe he used security somewhere else, but I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen him use security. He's talking about safety, right? You notice this is a common thing with humans. When they can't actually achieve something, they change its name, right? When the actual benchmark that's been the benchmark forever, the thing that's been the standard forever, when it doesn't fit their agenda or they know they can't achieve it, they just sort of like slightly change the name, right? It's like I'm trying not to give an example that'll be too politically divisive, but I think we can all think of certain things that have been very prominent in the political cycle in the last couple of years, where a label is just slightly changed, and all of a sudden you give it a brand new meaning. I think this is a good example of that. Instead of talking about security, which has always been the way we labeled that leg of the blockchain trilemma, now we're talking about safety. It's no longer even security, it's safety, something totally different. I'm trying not to make this political and give you guys the political version of this, but I think you can all imagine in your own heads, no matter which side of the spectrum you're on, the political spectrum, exactly what kinds of words were relabeled just like this. Now it's happening with important technical things, though. Like, either a blockchain has a high level of security or it doesn't. And people get tied up in weird discussions on this, right? Like, you notice even when they're not relabeling it like this, even when they're not going from security to safety, they'll try to pretend like, oh, we're just talking about the security of the blockchain. In this discussion, you see people saying, oh, Ethereum's only had like one exploit in 10 years, right? In that case, they'd be referring to like the DAO exploit, when that's certainly not true. Sir Corin said the correct thing here. There's a major hack weekly on Ethereum, and there are random users being phished and having their wallets drained due to blanket approvals and lack of native assets on a daily basis. Isn't it one of the three pillars of the trilemma? Correct. And then people get into stuff like this. Oh, study budget security, please. Like, they're saying, oh, the security of individual users and individual dApps isn't what security is. It's the protocol not getting hacked, right? As if somebody, launching a quantum computer that suddenly, hacks the base encryption going on in the blockchain. Like, somebody can suddenly, go backwards from through the hashing algorithm. Somebody reversing the hashing algorithm is the only thing that qualifies as security. Like that hasn't happened. Like Bitcoin people could say like SHA-56, 256 hasn't been hashed, so security is very good, right? That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about security. We're talking about people not getting their money stolen, right? And that can happen in many ways. That can happen at the wallet level. That can happen at the DApp level. That can happen in many ways without the base cryptography being broken in a blockchain, right? It's like we know quantum computing is going to come along someday, and SHA-256 isn't going to be sufficient anymore. I've covered kind of the history of SHA-256 and the shattering SHA shattering happened. There's historical events where they found like collisions in SHA in various versions of secure hashing algorithm blank. There's different versions. Bitcoin uses SHA-256, but we've gone through that. That's not what we're fucking talking about here. We're talking about people losing their money, which doesn't require the base encryption being broken. Mark says, anyone remember Trade Wars game on bulletin boards? Great memories. Love the show. Daniel Wiggins says, Coin Bureau or ETH Maxis for many years now. Yep, agreed. Rulo says CB is a joke, muted them a long time ago. I think a lot of people did because I never hear people mention them sort of outside of certain blockchains. Like we don't talk about them very much at all on Coinbase anymore for all these reasons. Is Guy even doing it anymore? I always see a girl or some surfer guy in the videos. That's my impression too. With Coin Bureau, it'd be Vitamin did a thing. We're the greatest ever. Was there no Masari report this year? I don't know. Moving the goalposts. Yeah, well put. They are moving the goalposts. Brian Austin is here. Looking forward to catching all of this in the morning. Thanks for dropping in. Good to see you. Good to see you. The trunk of the tree needs to support the branches, and the branches support the leaves. If the trunk is not strong, the tree dies. True. This is why words matter. Also true. When I read Maxis, I immediately thought the old SimCity publisher. Rest in peace. Yeah, man. It's This is part of the problem, though. This is sort of, to me, this is sort of them conceding defeat. They're conceding defeat on the security thing. They don't even want to call it security anymore. Even Vitamin Butters, who invented the goddamn blockchain trilemma, he's the dude who first said it. He first said it. It was him who said the legs are decentralization, security, and scaling. Even the guy who came up with this shit, because his blockchain isn't quite, because it is the robbery forest, even he is the guy who's relabeling it, right? It's basically a concession that security is not what we should shoot for. We should just shoot for safety, and safety is going to be what we say it is to match, the contours of our blockchain. So he wants to talk about everything else. He wants to talk about all the zero knowledge Ethereum virtual machine stuff, gas limit increases, um, um, a future where the full block is never constituted in one single place. Let's talk about everything, but the one thing that has been the big gripe against Ethereum, and that is security. And that's not even talking about the Solana criticism of Ethereum, would be more around their lack of scaling. Hilldog says, Guy just made a video about Charles's plane and how much fuel he uses. Man, that is such old news. I think I remember this controversy, and it's such old news too. And it really applies to every single person who has a private plane and actually uses it. Like if you have a private plane and you use it a lot, you're going to burn a crazy amount of fuel. And yes, it's not great. Environmentalists will say it's not great for the environment. I mean, this is a story as old as time. So here's another funny thing. Here's another crazy post. So I'm going to read you this post from this person. 5 people in the world know how to design DeFi protocols on the UTXO model with covenants. And then he tells you the tips. The guy who thinks there are only 5 people who know how to do DeFi on UTXO is going to give you tips on how to do it. He's like, I learned the hard way. Somehow he learned how to become the master of DeFi protocols on UTXO without realizing we have a shitload of people in Cardano who know how to do DeFi on UTXO. In fact, it's hard not to argue that the Cardano ecosystem didn't invent this shit. Who else was doing DeFi on UTXO except Cardano? Thank God Phil went on this thread and he said, as someone who has architected and developed an absolutely massive number of DeFi protocols on UTXO protocols, I'm happy to offer some critical insight that goes against some of the intuition of those tips. For instance, you can indeed have shared state on chain without race conditions in practice. So he's pointing out something that's, technically inaccurate, according to Phil, in this guy's rundown of tips, right? This guy says, oh, I'm not familiar with Cardano though. Is there a mechanism to do shared state? And then Phil explains to him exactly how to do shared state and gives him a link to his fucking GitHub. He's like, not only that, here's the code. Here's the goddamn code. Here's the GitHub where you can learn how to do it. Here's a bit of code, and tells him in detail how to do it. This is incredible. The guy who wants to tell you that there are only 5 people who know how to do DeFi on UTXO and then tell you all about how to do UTXO is wrong, according to Phil. And then he admits, I'm not familiar with Cardano. How the fuck are you not familiar with Cardano if you think you have mastered how to do DeFi on UTXO? It's crazy. It's crazy. People think there is no alternative. So when I look at this, maintainer, solidity.dev, lead, distributed lab, Solidity lead, of course. This is an Ethereum person, Solidity lead. This is an Ethereum person. It's so bad in Ethereum that somebody could type this and not realize the Cardano people are going to come on here. And Phil wasn't even the only Cardano person who went on and talked and said very similar shit. So Mateo, as one of the most known leading teams in UTXO environments, I beg to differ. We have almost 10 years of experience on UTXO, having developed more than 15 plus dApps. Your points are valid, but very basic knowledge and much more is normally required to build proper dApps. So, and even more, obviously we have many developers in Cardano who do DeFi on UTXO because that's all we have. We are the UTXO guys. We do the smart contracts on DeFi. There were more people. Here we go. I saw Ethereum and I knew this guy just acted like Cardano does not exist. These guys. And this guy says, I'm not talking about Cardano. How the fuck are you not talking about Cardano if you're talking about DeFi on UTXO or any smart contracts on UTXO? We literally invented EUTXO. So this is how far the Ethereum community has gotten from, reality, I would say. They think that the mastery of UTXO lies in Solidity, guys. It's insane. Chalk Milk says, forget security. It took 17 days to unstake some ETH. I was out after that. I think a lot of people were. I discovered Thailand back 2 years ago. Before me, only 5 others knew about it. It's like somebody goes on Twitter and says, hey, I invented this language, I'm calling it Thai, and then lays out the Thai script, right? And a bunch of people from Thailand are like, yo, dude, we've been using this language for a long time, including that script. That's exactly what it's like. Curly Knox says, I'm just a rugged individualist looking at another rugged individualist, asking him to let's go. Let's go, Curly Knox. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, this shit is like hilarious. I guess we should just laugh at this. It's so ridiculous. You can't even be offended. It's just like, oh my God. This guy like literally says, I'm not familiar with Cardano though. Not only is he not familiar with it, he's like, I'm not talking about Cardano. He obviously knows that Cardano exists, and he obviously knows that Cardano is UTXO. But I think he thought he's probably so much in the Ethereum bubble that he thought he could say these things, and pretend like he's the master of UTXO, and then just be like, but Cardano isn't a thing. It's amazing. Okay, what else we got here? Oh, Jay Marie, thank you for this one. Jay Marie tagged me in this one. Bullish, CNBC reports Walmart will now accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, and crypto payments in store for its 1 billion monthly customers. I saw a bunch of people, different people report this. I haven't tried to verify this at all. If anybody has debunked this or can clarify this in some way that's different than is presented here, I haven't verified this, but this is actually a really big deal. If you're not in the US, a lot of listeners of this channel are not in the US, and maybe they don't understand how sort of pervasive Walmart is, but Walmart is in like every town in the US, even small rural towns will often have a Walmart. It's like everywhere. So this thread actually says in store. They're going to accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, and crypto payments in store. I mean, this is a huge chain with many, 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 many retail locations. This is a pretty big deal. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of like trying to have a discussion about blockchains and saying like Cardano is the biggest blockchain by market cap, and then everybody will be like, what about Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, BNB, Solana, Tron, and Dogecoin? And you're like, well, I'm not talking about those. I'm not familiar with those. Cardano is the biggest blockchain by market cap. I'm not talking about those. It's great. I'm gonna start using this in regular conversation. I'll like look at the sky and say, "Man, I don't know what color the sky is, but it looks like a shade of purple." People will be like, "No, it's blue," and I'll just respond, "I'm not talking about blue." Yeah, I mean, like, there are reasons why people disfavor Walmart, and there's some legit reasons, but Walmart's not going anywhere. Walmart's not going anywhere, and a huge number of people use it. So if Walmart is going to, I mean, it's sort of like a question, like, do you want people to do commerce in crypto? If you do, then, the only way for a large number of people to do commerce with crypto is if big institutions start accepting it. So I get what you're saying, but if crypto is going to be widely used, we're probably going to have to accept that some big institutions we may not love are going to be using it as well, and they're going to end up with large amounts of crypto, just like they have large amounts of dollars right now. So man, I think we solved the mic problem, guys. I think my I just had I had the cord too tight in my mic in the arm, the extendable arm of the mic stand here. And I think it was just pulling the plug a little bit loose, which is a lot better than what I thought it was. Yeah, exactly. Why don't we just start changing words? Why don't we start changing words? So we also saw this. This is actually pretty good news. Japan's Minister of Finance says she supports integrating crypto into the finance system. This is probably even better news for Cardano than it is for a lot of blockchains because Japan is the home of Cardano. This is fantastic. If you're new to Cardano, you don't realize Cardano came from Japan. So, and Charles is just about to launch a gigantic tour of Japan from the north to the south. Is he going to be in, where's he starting? Is he starting in Hokkaido? I don't know where he's starting, somewhere in the north. He's starting in the north and he's going to travel all the way to the south. So pretty good timing, Japanese Minister of Finance, and a good thing for Cardano for sure. Okay, we also saw this stable coins, and this is another thing I haven't verified, but I like it when I see stuff like this. Stable coins now account for 1.35% of the total US dollar supply. If you think this is going down, I think you might be crazy. I believe this number is going to trend up. I think 1.35% is not the highest this number will ever be. I think this number is going to trend up. And, I have like mixed thoughts about, I have competing thoughts about how important I want stable coins to be in crypto, but it's obvious they are going to be important. So this guy says misleading, stable coins are backed by cash equivalents, so it's double counting to express it this way. I mean, I'm sure there's different approaches that come to slightly different numbers, but I think it's also pretty obvious that stable coins are probably a small amount of the total US dollar supply, and however you want to count them. And I would guess that number is just going to go up. It's just going to go up unless something very unexpected happens with stablecoins. This was kind of interesting. So this is another example of how you can't trust the influencers on Twitter. So I saw this post. I saw this post come through. It says Fed Chair Powell said on CNBC that every bank can now offer Bitcoin and crypto services. They are all coming. So, okay, yeah, he's got the video right there. You can tell that Powell actually does say this, right? You can tell that Powell does this. But if we pause it right here, you can also see it has a price for Bitcoin of 103K. So you have to ask yourself, wait a second. This was presented with no commentary as to timing or freshness of this post. And we're kind of led to believe this might have happened today. And then you see this number and you have to ask yourself, when was Bitcoin at 103K? Daniil came through and said November 13th, which is, I could tell looking at the chart, it was sometime in November. So this post is like 2 months old. And a lot of people got excited about this, probably got excited about seeing this in its various versions. Like, let's see how many, okay, yeah, 100,000 people saw this. Like, how many of them do you think realized that this was, how many of those 100,000 people do you think realized this wasn't today? People probably saw this and thought it was today, which is, probably, who knows if this poster didn't realize this is a pretty big account. How many? Yeah, almost 250,000 followers. So this is a big account. We can argue about whether or not they realized this was 2 months old, or whether they didn't. But you can't trust these Twitter posters. They might post something that's over 2 months old and get you all excited about something that you think is happening today. So Binochem confirms Sapporo first. So yes, Hokkaido. Does anyone know how often stablecoins are actually redeemed, or is the minted amount just trading around? I couldn't give you numbers on that. I could not give you numbers on that. It's an interesting question though. I don't use stablecoins much. I'm sure in the early days of stablecoins, when we just had Bitfinex and its associated entities and Tether, when everybody's like, "What is this? What is this Tether thing?" We kept pretty good track of minting and redemptions, or at least it was discussed a lot more. Now we don't even discuss it, but maybe we should discuss it more. Gonna Speak says, I don't use stablecoins much. Take my fiat and give me real crypto, please. That's kind of how I am too. A show talking about a stablecoin that let you pay employees payroll via stablecoins, right? Employers want it to be public what they pay people. Then said Midnight is a rug by CH, no utility. So yeah, so this was something. Some of the things you're talking about were discussed at the kind of at the Midnight Summit, the sort of Midnight Summit they had in the UK. When was it? Like, a couple months ago, maybe. Yeah, this thing about payroll and stable coins and privacy was discussed, right? Someone on stage said, "Hey, I knew someone who had a company and they're crypto enthusiasts and they wanted to pay people in crypto. And because of the transparency of the blockchain, people started asking why this guy is getting paid this much and I'm getting paid this much, caused a lot of trouble. Obviously, Midnight solves this. And, a lot of employees are going to prefer to be paid in stable coins because they're stable versus the pound or the euro or the dollar or the yen or whatever. So I think that is an interesting use case. MinSwap is starting to unlock and distribute some night 1 of 4 tranches to LP farm participants. Okay. TurboDump says, I have a feeling something is brewing with Jed. Chuck did a whole video on it a few months back. I bought a bunch of Shen at the low. The Shen rewards haven't been distributed for a bunch of epics. Oh, I didn't know that. I've been kind of curious about how that was going for Shen holders. I'll be curious to see what happens. It's kind of that whole Tricoin system with Shen and Jed and Ada is kind of fascinating to me. I did whole videos on it back in the day when it first sort of debuted. It's it's kind of fascinating to me. Okay. One last thing. I thought this was quite interesting. So this is Lynn Alden. Lynn Alden has some very smart commentary on macro, especially, and sort of macro's relationship to crypto. So Lynn Alden says 2 facts about Buffett. She's talking about Warren Buffett here. So somebody pointed out, she's responding to this post down below. My favorite Buffett stat is that Berkshire stock could drop 99% and he still would have outperformed the S&P 500 since he took over. Enjoy retirement. So this is about Warren Buffett retiring. That's the timing of this post. She says 2 facts about Buffett are true at the same time. And people don't like to hear this. People who are fans of Warren Buffett, and I think it's smart to be a fan of Warren Buffett. Uh, the things he has expressed to the world about value investing are kind of incredible, incredibly insightful. Some of the things he said. Obviously, he hates Bitcoin. He hates Bitcoin. He hates crypto. Probably hates crypto even worse than he hates Bitcoin. But here's what Lynn says. Buffett brilliantly combined insurance, i.e., super cheap leverage, and quality value stock selection to dominate the 20th century. Absolutely devastatingly good returns. I agree with all that. He also underperformed gold in the 21st century. Think about that for a second. Think about that. Warren Buffett is, we can argue he's the greatest investor, the most famous, most appreciated investor, in sort of recent, maybe world history, certainly in the US, maybe in recent US history, the most appreciated investor. And he underperformed gold. He underperformed gold this century. Isn't that wild? The guy who everybody thinks is the ultimate investor in equities still underperformed somebody who just bought gold. If you bought gold, according to Lynn here, if you bought gold in 2000, you did better than Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway this entire century. That's kind of amazing. Can you still collect Shen rewards in the US? I don't know about that. I can guarantee you there's some, even if there's kind of issues with that, I can guarantee you there are some people getting around it with VPNs and things. So will midnight bring back the yield farming boom again? Not a trader, so I don't understand yield farming, but feels like how dust value could lead to midnight yield farming. I mean, yield farming is definitely something that people love to engage in DeFi. And there's going to be DeFi on midnight, like there's going to be on almost any blockchain. So I'm sure there will be yield farming. Will there be a yield farming boom? I don't know about that part. Pelosi can beat gold. Yeah, actually, Pelosi should be the investor that everybody gravitates toward. But difficult to explain her success. Her success is very difficult to explain. Puggy Hawks is not gonna lie. I would let Nancy invest my money. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I mean, she'd be the greatest investment advisor of all time. She'd be the one you'd want, but she would also be the one who'd be unwilling to be your investment advisor. So I think I think what's happening is we're sort of seeing a return to the foundations of crypto. People are sort of, now that we've gone through these cycles of, these various speculative asset manias, these trends, the ICOs, the NFTs, the meme coins, we're sort of getting back to the fundamentals of crypto. And it's hard to say whether it's because smart people in the TradFi world and the rest of the non-crypto world are coming into crypto more. There's more institutional adoption. So the bullshit just won't fly anymore. It's hard to say if it's that or if all of us inside crypto, all of us who are crypto native, just got exhausted with all the bullshit. But I can say for sure, whatever it is, I'm super glad to see that we seem to be returning to the fundamentals of crypto, right? Like, let's try to solve the blockchain trilemma. And people are going to try to weasel out of that and say the blockchain trilemma is not, what you guys think it is. The new blockchain trilemma is this. The blockchain trilemma really should have been expressed this way. Security really means safety, and safety means this. Decentralization is the one they've lied about the most.
decentralization really means this. It doesn't mean that. The weirdest lie is we're decentralized and there's no decentralized governance, right? I think we can all name very prominent blockchains where that's the case, right? The biggest blockchains in the world. I've been a holder in the past and currently of these blockchains, never been asked to vote on a damn thing in those blockchains, right? Not even to delegate to somebody else to vote. I had absolutely no say in the development of those blockchains. And yet they say, we're decentralized. How can you fucking be decentralized if there's no decentralization of the direction of the blockchain, right? Bitcoin has kind of an interesting argument. They can say, oh, the miners can point their rigs at whatever chain they want. If, that was the market caps of Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, are a result of decentralized governance because the miners decided not to point their rigs at Bitcoin Cash. They kept mining the Bitcoin main chain. So that was decentralized governance. So they have an interesting argument in Bitcoin, at least, but in some of these other blockchains that are now proof of stake, where they've never had governance, they can't make that same argument. If they're proof of stake, they can't make this miners pointing their rigs at the chain, and that's a form of governance argument. They just don't have decentralized governance. So I would argue that a lot of these chains, like, they're already starting to sort of, blur the contours of what security is. But all along, they've been trying to tell us that decentralization is something it's not. They try to say that decentralization, just means how many people are using your chain, basically. Or, hey, our chain has, X number of validators, and that's enough. 700 validators is decentralization. A Nakamoto coefficient of 2 or 3 or 4 is enough. We have 1,500 validators, even though our Nakamoto coefficient is 4 or 2 or 1, that's enough. These have been lies. It's hard to call them anything but lies. And I feel like part of the benefit of all these institutions coming into crypto is brand new people who are smart people. TradFi soaks up a lot of IQ just in sort of the hiring market. There's a lot of IQ coming into crypto, and you may not agree with their choices. You may think morally they do the wrong things, but it's hard to deny that they're not very smart people. They're going to come in and look at these same issues with new eyes, and they're not stupid. And they're going to say, wait a second, blockchains like Cardano actually have decentralized governance. You guys have zero decentralization. How are you claiming you're decentralized when you haven't even sort of begun the process of, creating a decentralized governance system? You have no governance. One guy picks all the members of the foundation, and the members of the foundation decide the direction of the blockchain. That's a dictatorship. That's not decentralized governance. And if you don't have decentralized governance, how can you claim to be decentralized? So I think there's going to be a reckoning of these things. People are going to say, we've solved the blockchain trilemma. And people are going to ask them some hard questions that they're not going to be able to answer. Turbodome says, that's a good point. I'm not sure, but the geofence is no longer up. It takes you to the mint and burn pages, but I haven't tried minting anything. I've been using dexes for Shen. Okay. The Ignorant Bastard says, words matter. What does decentralization mean? Any debate needs to start with agreement on what words mean. We've learned that in politics over the last, 4-ish years. That's become longer than that, really, but it's that's something that I think everybody understands now. Like stacking the board of directors with puppets. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited for 2026. Great things are happening technically in Cardano. We're becoming a layerverse that we've talked about for a long, long time on this channel. Great things are happening. Crypto might be experiencing a reckoning where people have to be intellectually honest about the blockchain trilemma. And I think Cardano comes out very, very, very well in this race. It's not even a race, in this comparison where people ask who actually solved the real blockchain trilemma. I think Cardano comes out very, very well in that discussion. And it's not a discussion that people have been willing to have on an intellectually honest basis for the last like many, many years in crypto. So I think 2026 is going to be fantastic for Cardano. Thank you all for joining. I hope everybody is starting out a great week and a great new year in 2026. And I will talk to you soon.